The massive aircraft carrier sliced through the dark waters of the Pacific, its deck bathed in the golden light of dawn. Young sailors moved quickly, executing drills with precision, their voices sharp against the wind. Among them stood Captain Reed, a man known for his strict discipline and zero tolerance for insubordination. Today, however, his attention was caught by an old man standing quietly near the observation deck, dressed in a faded navy jacket with medals that told a story far older than most of the crew themselves. The old veteran, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much, stood like a statue. His name was Robert Kane, though most of the young sailors just called him Sir out of habit. Captain Reed had heard whispers that the Admiral had personally approved this old man's presence aboard, but no one knew why. The morning briefing began as usual, until the Admiral himself walked onto the deck, flanked by officers. His face was stern, but when his eyes landed on the old veteran, something in his expression shifted, a flicker of recognition or maybe disbelief. "Gentlemen," the Admiral began, "today we conduct joint operations with live coordination between Air and Sea Command. This man," he nodded toward Kane, "has been invited as an observer." Murmurs rippled through the ranks. Captain Reed, visibly confused, stepped forward. "Sir, with all due respect, we have a full schedule. Why is an observer interfering in active operations?" The Admiral didn't answer, but Kane smiled faintly. "Don't worry, Captain," he said, his voice calm but carrying a weight that silenced the crowd. "I won't interfere. I've just come to see how the new generation does it." Reed didn't like the tone. Something about the old man's confidence rubbed him the wrong way. After the meeting, he approached Kane directly. "Old man," Reed said, crossing his arms, "this isn't a museum tour. You're on my deck, and I run things by procedure. So if you've got a reason to be here, you better say it." Kane turned slowly, his eyes cold and steady. "I served on this deck before you were even born, son. Back then, it wasn't as polished, and neither were the men." That answer stung, but before Reed could reply, the Admiral called over the intercom for a readiness check. As the crew scrambled into action, Reed's irritation grew. The Admiral was treating this old man with too much respect, and he couldn't figure out why. Later that evening, during a secure comms test, Reed decided to push the issue. The crew gathered in the command room as part of a communications drill. "All right," Reed said into the mic, "we're running a simulated call sign test. Each officer will identify themselves by call sign for secure clearance." The drill went smoothly until Reed turned to Kane. "Your turn, old-timer," he said mockingly. "What's your call sign if you even had one?" The room went silent. Even the Admiral paused mid-step, his head turning slowly toward the veteran. Kane looked up from the console, eyes gleaming beneath the harsh lights. "Hammer 6, he said quietly. The room froze. Every officer stopped moving. The Admiral's face went pale, his mouth opening slightly as if he'd seen a ghost. Captain Reed looked around, confused. What's wrong with that?" No one answered. The room went silent as the Admiral's salute hung in the air, every sailor frozen in disbelief. The only sound was the low hum of the ship's engines and the faint crackle from the radio. Captain Reed's confusion turned to unease as he saw the Admiral's hands trembling slightly. "Sir," he asked carefully, "what's going on? Who is he?" The Admiral didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lowered his salute and looked Kane directly in the eyes. "Hammer 6, he said softly. "I never thought I'd hear that call sign again." Kane nodded once, a faint smile curling at the edge of his weathered lips. "It's been a long time, Admiral. Didn't expect to set foot on one of these birds again." The Admiral exhaled, his voice almost reverent. "Captain Reed," he said, turning to his subordinate, "you're standing in front of the most decorated covert operations commander in naval history. Hammer 6 wasn't just a call sign, it was a legend." Reed blinked, struggling to process the words. "But sir," he said, "I checked the logs. There's no Hammer 6 in any recent record." The Admiral nodded. You wouldn't find it. Those records were classified above your clearance level. Operation Iron Wave 1983, a joint strike force that vanished behind enemy lines in the South Pacific. Everyone thought they were lost, but one man, Hammer 6, brought his entire surviving crew home after 18 days, without air support, without supplies, deep inside hostile waters. Reed's mouth fell open. That's impossible, he muttered. Kane's expression hardened. It was necessary, he said simply. The Admiral smiled faintly. He never accepted a promotion after that. Said he'd had enough of medals. But every naval commander since then has studied his tactics. You're running drills today that were designed by him. The weight of the revelation hit the room like a wave. Young sailors stared at the old man, realizing the legend they'd only heard whispered in training manuals was standing before them. Reed, still reeling, took a cautious step forward. If you were Hammer 6, he said quietly, then why come back now? Kane's gaze drifted to the observation window, where the ocean stretched endlessly beneath a darkening sky. Because, he said, I heard there's a new generation of captains who have forgotten what the sea demands respect. His tone wasn't angry, but filled with a quiet authority that silenced even the Admiral. You think this ship runs on steel and code? He continued, but it runs on the hearts of the men who'd give everything for the ones beside them. That's what command is, not barking orders, but carrying the weight of every soul under your watch. Reed swallowed hard, feeling something shift deep inside him. For the first time, he didn't see an old man. He saw a warrior who'd earned every scar, every line on his face. The Admiral stepped closer, his voice softer now. We've had incidents along the coast, he said. Submarine activity we can't explain. I asked for Kane to come aboard, not as an observer, but as an advisor. We might be heading into something we're not ready for. Kane looked at him, eyes narrowing. Ghost waters. The Admiral nodded slowly. We picked up a sonar trace 2 nights ago, a same pattern that disappeared in 1983. The old veteran's jaw tightened. Then it's not over, he said. Whatever we buried back then has found its way back. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. Sir, are you saying there's still something out there? Kane's voice was calm, but it carried the gravity of truth. The sea never forgets, Captain, and neither do the ghosts who died in it. Suddenly, the alarm blared across the ship. Sonar contact detected. The crew scrambled into motion as red lights flashed across the deck. Unknown object approaching, bearing 097, a sailor shouted. The Admiral and Reed rushed to the radar screen. A faint blip was moving fast beneath them, circling like a predator. Kane stepped forward, eyes locked on the display. That's not a whale, he murmured. Too precise. Reed turned to him. What do we do? Kane's hand went to the console like a man who'd never left. Run silent, he ordered. Cut the active sonar, change depth, and kill external lights. Let it think we're blind. The Admiral nodded to the crew. Do as he says. The carrier's massive systems began to power down, the deck lights dimming until the ocean swallowed them in shadow. The crew held their breath as the blip drew closer, then suddenly vanished from the radar. The silence that followed was unbearable. After nearly a full minute, Kane exhaled. It's gone, he said. Reed looked at him shaken. How did you know? Kane gave a faint, tired smile. Because I've hunted it before. The Admiral's face hardened. Then we were right to bring you back. Kane looked out at the black water, the reflection of the ship faint in his eyes. This ocean has teeth, he said softly, and they're sharper than ever. For a moment, no one spoke. Even the youngest sailors could feel the unseen power that surrounded them. The Admiral placed a hand on Kane's shoulder. Welcome back, Hammer 6. The Navy still needs you. Kane nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the sea. Then let's finish what we started, he said, this time for good. And as the night swallowed the horizon, the old veteran stood tall once more, the ghosts of his past whispering through the waves. the Admiral standing beside him, and a young captain finally, understanding that legends never fade. They just wait for the right storm to rise again.